In this video, we'll talk about how lighting intensity is related to your cinematography needs, like depth of field and motion blur. So the first time we talked about this kind of balancing act that you have in any photography, any kind, between shutter speed and ISO and aperture and focal length, and all except focal length affect exposure, and they also affect other things. They affect depth of field, and they affect motion blur, and they affect noise. There's these different factors that are affected as you vary these different things, and they all affect each other. So you're always trying to say, I need to stop down, so I need to change my shutter speed, or you're always making these compromises between these different settings. So the lighting then becomes a major factor in all of this stuff. What f-stop are you trying to get? What do you need shutter-wise? What do you need f-stop-wise? What's available to you ISO-wise? What is the available light around you that you're competing with? And then, what kind of lighting do you need for that? If you're outside and, you've got to fight with that gigantic sunlight, you might need that big giant light out there. But then if you decided you wanted a really shallow depth of field, like the squirrel picture, and you just didn't want very much in focus, well, I might need to open up. And maybe I've got a really fast f1.4 lens that has a super shallow depth of field. Love it. I want to use that lens. Well, you got way too much light. I mean, you could stack a bunch of ND on the lens, but maybe you just, why bother? Why don't you get one of these, you get a little light, like one of these smaller lights, and you're fine. Or if I was going to shoot some high-speed stuff, and I needed, for some reason to be like in an f11, and I needed to be at 120 frames a second, and I was going to try to get, some high-speed thing like water splashing, 120 frames a second, and now I'm letting 1/4 of the light in, shutter speed-wise, and going down to an f11 from a 1.4, I'm letting 1/85th the light in. So I have a massive amount more light in there. So now you're going to need that light instead of that light, for that kind of a usage, right? So, if you're shopping for lights and you see these little, 2100 lux at a meter, that's different than 9500 lux for that light. So that might be great for the little squirrel picture if you just need a little accent on his eyeballs. But for the splashing water picture, you might need that big light over there. So your shutter speed, will affect motion blur if you're trying to do a time lapse and you want to see car headlights that are streaking in a long continuous streak. You need a really slow shutter speed. You need to, and it's going to let a lot of light in. So if you're trying to do that during the daytime, if you're trying to get a race car going down the track, and behind them you just want streaks of blur, you got to slow your shutter speed down. Well, there's bright daylight out there. You're going to let massive amounts of light in the camera, so you're going to need to understand that you're not dealing with needing to add light. You're actually trying to take light away. On the other hand, if you you need to have a very, very fast shutter speed for something like stopping that water, then you need to put more light in. Aperture affects depth of field like the squirrel. If you want to see from here to eternity, you might need to stop down. And if you stop down, you need more light. So, and there are certainly situations where you need to see everything in focus for one reason or another, and so you might need more light. Click on the next video to continue. New videos drop every couple of days. If you like what you see, like and follow us on our social media channels. And everything is downloadable for free on our website, ruchiproductions.com.